I'm Elise, the Fox Lady Able, the founder of Foxwood Wildlife Rescue in East Concord, New York. I rehabilitate wildlife, and I've been doing it for over 30 years now, and my specialty are foxes. Red foxes in particular, but I've done all kinds of foxes, Arctic foxes and gray foxes. And I have the organization website is foxwoodwildliferescue.org. Thank you, Noah Johnson. And we're also on Facebook, Foxwood Wildlife Rescue Inc. on Facebook. So let's dive right in here. If I can figure this out. Trying to change this. There we go. All right. Red foxes, Latin name is Vulpes vulpes, Vulpes vulpes, and they're known as the cat-like canine, which means that even though they're considered a canine taxonomically, they're actually a little more like cats. They're very light-boned, thin animals. Hang on, let me enter some more people into the room. I think I've got to put some more people. No, I think we're okay. Females generally weigh 8 to 9 pounds. The males are a little larger, going 9 to 11. In my years of rehabilitating foxes, I literally put them on scales all the time. And I've never had one that was a wild red fox that was over 11 pounds. And I know they look larger and they can be very tall and lean, but they're really not. I've even had them, some veterinarians that were ready to dose them for a 30-pound animal because they look so much larger than they really are. But really, they rarely top 11 pounds. And if you compare that with what the average domestic cat might weigh, I've seen cats that went from 8 pounds all the way up to 25 pounds. So let me admit a couple more people here. So, I always get a lot of questions about foxes and cats, which we're going to discuss later, but I would like to keep in mind for you that cats usually actually outweigh foxes, even though the foxes might look a lot larger and a lot taller. Cats are about the same size and larger than the average fox. From nose to tail tip, we're talking, 36 inches to 42 inches for the average fox. The lifespan is 15 years, but they rarely actually reach that in the wild. 4 to 6 years is average, and actually the first year, probably half of the fox kits that are born don't make it their first year. So let me mute a couple people here that are coming in. All right, I think everybody's in, hopefully. Foxes love edges. So where your lawn meets the fields, where your lawn meets the woods, where the fields meet the woods, that's where they like to stay. And that's because that's where their prey is usually hiding, the small rodents and stuff. They like a mixed landscape. So you'll see them in the suburban neighborhoods. And it's perfect for them because in the suburbs, you've got the trees, the lawns, the fields, you've got lots of food, you've got bird feeders. It's really excellent habitat for the foxes. And I've been asked, a lot of callers want me to come and trap the foxes and put them where they belong. And I have to let them know that the foxes belong right where they are. They adapt quite well to living in suburban neighborhoods, and they actually adapt quite well to living in cities too. There's lots of food, lots of hiding places, and they're just very adaptable animals. Let's let Brian in and Emily. All right. So red foxes are not strictly nocturnal animals, so they're very busy at night. They actually share habits more like a domestic cat. So your cat is awake a little during the day, maybe plays for a little while, and then might hunt for a little bit, and then take a cat nap, wake up a little later and do the same thing. That's what foxes do. But you'll see the red foxes the most often early in the morning when their prey is most active. So, usually like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. is a good time to see foxes. And dusk as well is a really good time to see the foxes. Now let's see if I can go to the next slide. How do we do this?
Okay, so I'll turn mine off.
Oh, we gotta mute Brian. There you go. All right. So red foxes are classified as carnivores, but in fact, they're omnivores. Anytime you find fox scat during the summer, the spring and the summer and the fall, when there's foliage and grass available, you're usually going to find fox scat that consists mostly of grass. And that is also one of the things that gives it the pointy look, typical of fox scat. But it's largely made up of grasses, berries, insects, and mice. So they're omnivores. They love bird seed. They love pumpkins. They like vegetables, carrion, dead things. They do a lot of roadkill cleanup during the night. And they're very useful in that way. During the winter, their diet might change a little bit because obviously they're going to be limited on grass and stuff, but they'll kind of switch their diet a little bit in the winter, and they'll eat a lot of carrion, dead deer. When, after hunting season, during and after hunting season, they can eat the gut piles, the carcasses, deer that are lost by hunters, roadkill. You'll see the foxes eating that as well. Free rodent control. You want them in the suburbs. If it weren't for foxes and coyotes, we would be overrun with rats and mice. And, you have to look at the positive things that they do. They're great mousers. And foxes rarely eat cats, dogs, or small children. People are always nervous about cats, and there's a lot of rumors, foxes eat cats. Watch your small dogs, watch your children. Never heard of a fox harming a child. It'd be very tough for a child to corner a fox. It's not one of those things that happens. Small dogs, your small dogs are probably your smallest ones are probably anywhere from 8 to 10 pounds. And too much work for a fox to go after. So you really don't have to worry about that. But geez, common sense, of course, would dictate not to let your small dogs and maybe your sick and very small cats out unattended, not because of foxes so much as because of other dangers. Cars, you've got birds of prey, eagles are coming back, owls, all those things can pick up a cat or a small dog, or obviously you wouldn't leave your babies out there. So that's more of a little joke. I really wouldn't worry about foxes and these other pets, but we'll talk a little more about that near the end of the program. Let me see if how am I switching this? All right, let's talk about the vision of foxes. Their eyes are usually, when they're adults, now this is a baby in the picture. We're going to admit Trish. There you go, Trish. And we're going to admit David. Please mute yourselves, David and Trish, if you haven't already. When they're adults, their eyes are mainly yellow, sometimes a brown, and they have vertically slit elliptic pupils. We're going to mute David. And when they're young, their eyes are like a real dark blue. When their eyes open, just like puppies, their eyes are real blue. And as they get older, they turn more of a yellow or brown. They have binocular vision. They have a 260-degree field of vision, and they have you know what rods and cones are. Well, they have a lot of rods in their eyes, more rods than we do, and it gives them better depth perception, night vision, and movement tracking. Their tapetum lucidum allows for really good sight at night. It's basically a very reflective layer in the back that bounces light off of the back of the eye and multiplies it so they can see things. When any light that they take in is greatly magnified so that they can see better at night. And that's what you see, like say if you're driving and you see some eyeballs glowing on the side of the road, that's that tapetum lucidum that you're seeing reflecting. And when you see a fox, very often the reflection that you would see might be blue or green, but it's sometimes red or orange, depending on the light and the situation and the fox. Foxes tend to be more nearsighted. Okay, so they have myopic vision. They see things better close than they do at a distance. And some people say, some researchers say that foxes can actually see the Earth's geomagnetic field, and that helps them hone in on prey. When you see those videos of a fox pouncing on a mouse that's about a foot underneath the snow, that's what the researchers think that the foxes are actually seeing is the geomagnetic field to allow them to get that mouse. The hearing, very important for a fox. That's why those ears are so big. They are crucial for prey location. They say a fox can hear a watch ticking from 100 feet away. They have a very mobile ear that can turn any direction. They're very tall ears. They're cone-shaped to gather sound waves, and they allow that for the funneling the sound down into the ear canal. And I use this picture here. This is an albino fox that I caught recently. First albino fox I have ever seen in the wild naturally in my life. And I've seen a lot in my over 30 years of working with foxes. And this little guy was actually born not too far from me, about half an hour from me. And he wasn't doing well. And we didn't know much. I didn't know much why he wasn't thriving, but I went and I set a humane trap, and I caught him very easily and very quickly. And when I was driving him home, I noticed that he was very sick. He was coughing, very, very bad cough, very deep cough, and he actually had pneumonia. And let me see if I need to let this person, I'm letting Marcy in. And Marcy, okay. I'm going to mute everybody. I think I'll make sure everybody's muted. So this little guy's been on antibiotics for a while now. We cleared up the pneumonia, but I realized that he was very underweight and not doing well. And I did a few experiments using a remote camera, and I've come to realize that this fox is stone deaf. Sorry, I muted myself. A deaf fox can't survive in the wild. They can't locate prey. They can't hear bugs rustling in the leaves. They can't hear the mice squeaking at night. And that also explains to me why this poor fox was so underweight. It was probably about, oh gosh, maybe 4 pounds when I got it. It was too light to trigger the pan of the trap. That's how light it was. And so I had to go back the next night and make my trap much lighter. So this fox is going to have to stay in captivity. I'm not sure if it's going to stay here at this point, although he's doing quite well, or if I'm going to find placement at some point. But very unusual. The vibrissae, or the whiskers. Foxes are very tactile animals, and those long whiskers you'll see, and they've all got those are very thick whiskers, and those whiskers go very deep into the skin, and those are used for feeling its way, like when it's walking, just like your cat would be. It kind of tells the animal where everything is on the body, so it doesn't try and walk through something that it can't fit through, because the ends of the whiskers would let it know, hey, you're not going to fit here. They have, as you see, there's some over the eye and the eyebrow, and that's of course to protect the eye. You don't want to damage the eye for a canine like that, a hunting canine. But so there's very, very sensitive nerves at the base of each of those. And there's also some dark areas in the fox's muzzle that you see where those whiskers are, and those are scent glands, very much associated with those whiskers. So they go 3 times deeper into the body than their fur goes. And yeah, like a cat's whiskers. They have those also on their wrists. So they don't just have them on their face. They actually have them on their wrists, and they say that is so the fox can better know its body position when it's hunting, when it's going for mice. They're very agile, and those whiskers or vibrissae really help the fox to accomplish catching prey. Fox feet. Fox feet, look at the fur on the bottoms of those feet. And they have fur on the bottoms of those feet, and they have scent glands in those feet, right down, right inside of these areas right here. And these areas inside the feet will get very reddish with the scent glands in there. They'll make like a rusty color on the bottoms of those feet. But that fur enables the foxes to walk very quietly, so it can stalk mice. Yeah, fox feet are really cool. And in like soft mud, you can see the beautiful imprint of the fur if you get a really nice print. The fox tracks. Fox tracks. In the snow. This is my hand here. With this track that was in my driveway. I know that was the fox. I always look at these two nails here and this X here, kind of interesting shape. And so you might see the nails on a fox print. They're very neat. They're very compact tracks. They're not like a dog would be more splayed. The pads of a dog track would be more splayed. And comparing a fox track to a coyote track, a fox track would be smaller, usually, around 2 inches long. And depending on the gait that the fox is moving at would depend on the track. But foxes do tend to walk kind of in a somewhat straight pattern when they're trotting. You'll see very often a very straight line there. So foxes have very rich scent glands. There's one right at the base of the tail, like most wild canines have, right there, the base. Well, let's see, yeah, in there, and it'll be dark where that scent gland is. There's scent glands on the cheeks. There's actually scent glands inside the mouth, on the face, like you might see a fox rubbing up against a tree. It's scenting the tree. And again, we've got the foot pad scent glands too. And I do believe those are the scents. That's where the scent comes from when they're hunting foxes with hounds. The hounds can smell the fox from the foot, the glands of the feet. All right, the vocalizations of fox, they have a very large vocabulary. And here's an interesting thing, and I'm in Western New York, and we have fishers are kind of converging on our area, and they're coming up from the south. They had someone release, I guess the biologist released fishers down in the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, and also in the Catskill Mountains. So where I am in Western New York, the fishers are coming up from the south and in from the east, and they're kind of converging on this area. They've been following the porcupines and the squirrel populations. And along with the fishers comes some myths. And one of those myths is the fisher's scream. And it's interesting. If you look up fisher's scream on YouTube, most of those are actually red foxes. And the only fisher that's actually, I wouldn't even call it screaming, I call it vocalizing, is an injured young fisher that somebody actually has on video making a very distressed noise, which, yeah, I suppose you could call it screaming, but that's not the noise people hear at night echoing through the woods. Basically all mustelids, your skunks, your weasels, your mink, they all have a vocalization that they use when they're stressed out, when they're scared, when they're hurt. And that's would be the only scream that they'd have, but they all have that. But the fisher scream really is, if you look on YouTube, you'll see that people will call it a fisher screaming, but they're not actually showing a fisher making the noise. They're whispering, and it's something going on in the dark they don't know. So I'm going to play for you right now some fox vocalizations that I found to be very accurate. And if you have a dog, if you have dogs in your room, they might bark. Mine might even bark. So let's play these. I'm going to stop this real quick. That vocalization is basically a fox that is stressed out. There's something in its territory. There's something scary. Maybe a coyote, maybe a dog. Something is causing a fox to be alarmed. And so it's letting other foxes know. And if it has young early in the spring, that noise will send those babies running back to the den and hiding. It's just, they know it instinctively. I've had fox kits here that have never, when they were taken, they never heard that noise before in their life. And they're brought, people had them, maybe trying to make pets out of them or whatever. And I'll get them in and I'll put them in with one of my females. And if the female makes that noise, that pup instinctively knows that there's danger and will go and hide with the other kits, which is really kind of interesting. So let's continue on that, the noises. That's the noise that they say sounds like a woman being murdered in the woods. People think those are fishers. Here's another one. Another alarm bark. Oh, that's two foxes bickering. And usually when they're doing that, they're very close to each other and they're letting each other know that they don't like each other. Another alarm bark. Okay, stop that one. That is two foxes very, very irritated with each other. Somebody's too close to somebody else, they don't like each other again. Okay. That's foxes that like each other. And that's foxes, they might make that noise to their kits, but they're happy. They like each other. That's really an alarm, very alarmed fox. So, so basically, hearing all these noises, I think you can, understand why people might hear that and think that and not realize that it's a fox. They're very loud noises, and there's more. There's 7 minutes of vocalizations on here, which I don't necessarily have to play for you all, but it's a good representation of the different fox vocalizations. So breeding. Foxes breed, at least, I'm talking mostly about New York State where I am. In January and February is the peak mating season. Foxes are generally they monogamous. They do love each other. If something happens to their mate, they mourn, and they might make some of those barks there if they lose one of their mates, or maybe during trapping season, there's a mate in a trap. The wife or husband of that fox will get very stressed out and cry. But year to year, they might take a new mate, but once they have chosen a mate, they stay with that mate. They're very loyal to each other. The home range, generally, like in the summer months, spring months, is 2 to 5 miles. It's greater in the wintertime because there's reduced prey. They have to travel further for their prey. And they do mark the territory with feces and urine scent posts. And you can usually find a fox scent on like a fence post, or on if you're walking through a field and you've got a mound of weeds. That's a great place to look for fox scent. If you're walking a dog and your dog stops and is very curious about anything that's raised up a little bit in the ground, it's a good chance that a fox had scented that, and they'll use their urine to scent that. And in the winter months, and especially when the females are in heat, that will smell very skunky. So my dogs are making noise here. In January and February, the foxes basically choose their den. And really common in the last 30 years is foxes coming to den under people's sheds and decks. And a lot of times underneath those sheds and decks, there's a hole underneath there. And those holes were usually dug by woodchucks first. And then the fox will modify that hole. So, like, if your fox is going under a shed, if you looked under there, you don't see them. That's because there's probably a hole underneath of your shed, and they'll raise their youngsters under there. But that's when, if you don't want foxes, that's when you want to discourage them. That's, don't wait until it's too late and you've got kits all over your yard. If they've been there the prior year and you don't want them coming back, start in February, early February, discouraging those foxes. And how you can do that, and we'll talk a little more about that, is use coyote urine or like punch balloons. And I'll show you later what punch balloons are, but discourage them before they come in. And the reason the coyote urine works is that the coyotes will kill the fox kits if they find them. So the foxes have actually come in closer to people to have their youngsters, because there's going to be less coyotes there. And if the fox smells coyote urine about, the area where she wants to raise those kits, or even if those kits are very young, a coyote urine will convince her that it's maybe not a good spot for her, and she will move them or she will just find another den. Early litters, usually mid-February, Valentine's Day, is when the early fox kits are born, but they can have them, February, March, and into April. And sometimes at about 10 to 12 days of age, the mother will move that litter to a new den. And that's why a lot of times as a rehabilitator, we'll get fox kits then, because while mother's moving these 10 to 12-year-old or 12-day-old kits, sometimes if something frightens her and she drops the kit and she's not able for some reason to come back and get it, that's usually when we'll get a lot of orphans at that age. Okay. All right. So the kits, an average of 4 to 6 kits, pups or cubs, whatever you want to call them, per litter. I've seen as many as 11 in one litter. And usually it's those young first-time mothers that are very, very healthy are the most fertile. Out of all those kits, out of the average litter, 4 to 6, about half of them might make it to fall. So there's pretty high mortality. They're born gray with a white tip on the tail. And that's kind of what we use to figure out if it's a red fox or a gray fox or a coyote. Although sometimes the coyotes will have white tips on their tails. But the red foxes always have a tiny white tip on the tail. But that might go away as they get older. And the males are very devoted parents. They will help by feeding the female in the den. And then, of course, they will bring food to the kits. And I found that a lot of times the male tends to come at night to feed the kits more so. And the female will tend to feed them more during the day. And the kits' eyes open 10 to 12 days. And by the way, I wanted to thank the photographers. There's some fantastic photographers that send me these pictures. I didn't take them all. And they send me these pictures, and they're just so beautiful. And I want to thank them for doing that. So here we have a beautiful fox family underneath the shed coming out. Those guys are probably 7 weeks old, those guys on the left. And if you look closely, this is a female fox. What she got in her mouth? She's got a whole mouth full of metal voles. And I think I counted 2, 4, there's at least 6 voles she's bringing back. So they're very hard working mothers. And, the older the kids get, the harder the females have to work to feed them. And they literally almost can't sleep. They'll be working day and night. And it's during this time when I get a lot of, complaints. Oh, this fox comes to our yard every day. We don't want it to do that. And they just don't realize how hard these mothers are working to feed their kids. And they will pick up a lot of roadkill and, like rabbits. And yeah, they'll take chickens, anything to feed those hungry growing babies. It's hard work. So here's a couple rules, and I get a lot of calls every year. Probably, from February until July, I probably get maybe 8 or 9 calls, and then emails and Facebook messages a day. It keeps me so busy. You should never attempt to relocate a fox or a fox family, and please don't hire someone else too. That always turns into a mess. You hire some of these people, and they, we trap them humanely and we'll relocate them. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. They may trap them humanely, but you cannot relocate the family safely. The mother you'll never catch the mother. And even if you did catch the mother, you could never keep her with the kids. She would just run away if you put her in the kits someplace. She would just run away. She'd be so panicked, and the kids would all die. So instead of hiring somebody and paying them money, and that's if they relocate them. Usually they drown them in drowning tubs. A lot of these guys, they don't care. They just want their money. Save your money and spend it on if the kids are still young, get some coyote or bobcat urine, put that near the den. You can irritate them by placing things near the the opening of the den, but not right. Don't block the opening. Make sure that they can get out. But you can irritate these foxes away. Let the mother move them. Don't you move them. Mother will move them if she's nervous enough, and then you can save the whole family. Punch balloons are pretty great, and I've got a picture of them later in this program. You want to have them fox face high, 1 to 2 feet off the ground, and punch balloons just kind of are really creepy to foxes. And say a fox is coming through the yard and you don't want it to come through the yard anymore. If you just put a balloon in the spot that it's crossing, that fox, you'll never see that fox going through there again. They balloons will just totally redirect them, change their where they're going to go. As far as orphans, I get a lot of calls. Well, there's a dead fox in the road, and I got these kits in the back. Hey, a dead fox doesn't necessarily mean it's the mother. And, it can be a real relief. If you've got a fox then in the back and there's a dead fox maybe hit by a car, check to see if it's a male or a female. You might not have anything to worry about. And if it's a nursing female, well, then we might have something to worry about. But if the fox kits are at least maybe 3 weeks old, the father can take care of them, or you can possibly drop them a little high quality dry cat food to supplement them until they're old enough, can help. And there's nothing wrong if you got a big litter, there's nothing wrong with putting a little dry cat food out for the babies to help mom out a little bit. Just make sure it's high quality cat food. I use Taste of the Wild. I never use the cheap stuff from the grocery store or stuff with the fillers or the dyes. So definitely you'd want to check dead fox, check the sex, check there's nursing nipples on a dead fox before you decide if someone's orphaned. Oh, here's the thing. Foxes don't protect their young aggressively like a grizzly bear. I get a lot of people, well, yeah, I got a fox den, but I have grandkids coming over. I have a dog. And sometimes it's kind of funny because a lot of times, well, what kind of dog do you have? Well, it's a lab. Well, you've got nothing to worry about. They don't protect their young aggressively. What they do is they bark that warning bark that you heard earlier. And that warning bark is not directed at you. It's directed at their kits. She'll watch you or she'll watch your dog, but that bark says to the kits, hide, there's a predator coming. And a lot of times you will hear that at night. And you'll hear that at night because that's when the cats are roaming around and they will bark at a cat like that. And cats can be jerks sometimes. Cats will just keep showing up night after night. And sometimes, the fox will run the cat off, but the cat will come back the next night. They'll run a cat right back up onto your porch or up a tree. But I've never heard of a fox harming or killing the cat. It's just, they may make a lot of noise, but I've never heard of one being killed. All right. And here's another thing to know. If you don't want the foxes around, the foxes will raise their young and then they're gone. They're gone. Usually by mid-June, sometimes sooner, they're gone. They're not going to stay there year round. So, if you can just kind of let them do their thing, they'll be gone. I've seen people actually hire trappers to remove fox families in June. Don't waste your money and don't waste their lives on that. So here's an interesting thing. More and more people raise chickens for hobbies. Chickens are great little pets, and people get very attached to them, and they get very upset when a fox gets their chickens. And I deal with this a lot. You really should have a very secure pen for your chickens. Chicken wire only keeps chickens out. It does not, it keeps chickens in. It does not keep foxes or possums or skunks or anything out. Always use a very strong gauge, 1 inch by 2 inch welded wire to protect your chickens the best. And fence in the bottom and then have a covering over the top because all these predators can climb, and all these predators, skunks, everything, can dig. So please, have a good pen for your chickens. And these Night Guard solar little boxes are really great. They're roughly about $20 a piece. You can get like 4 for $100 or $99 on Amazon. And it's a very small unit, about the size of a cell phone. And it's got a solar panel on the top, and there's a little red light that flashes. And if you hide that about fox face high, hang it right on your pen there, that tells the fox that there's already a predator there. And it helps keep your chickens safer because it helps deter some foxes. Might help with raccoons, possums, skunks, and coyotes as well. Electric poultry mesh. It's electrified. If you want to free range your chickens, really don't invite trouble. That poultry mesh is great. It can be solar powered, and you can move it around so your chickens can graze and eat the bugs. And it's electrified fencing, and it's pretty nifty. So check that out. This is an ultrasonic device with a solar panel on top, and it's motion activated. So when something passes, it emits a very high pitched sound. You can use things like that as well. They come on little stakes, and put them facing outwards for your chickens, or put them outside your electric poultry mesh. And here's those famous punch balloons. See, they've got the little band already on them, so you can grab them and you punch them with your hand. They're great for frightening off foxes and coyotes, and they're cheap. You can get a pack of 6 and the little inflator thing for probably less than $10 at Walmart or on Amazon. So foxes sometimes get distemper or rabies. I think I've actually, in 30 years, I've only actually had one red fox test positive for distemper, and it was a fox kit. Generally, the distemper is reserved for the gray foxes. Rabies is relatively rare in the foxes, but it happens, and they basically have to get attacked by a rabid animal just like anything else would. This little guy here in the snow, he's very young. He's probably maybe about 14, 2 weeks of age. He was picked up in a local cemetery, and darned if he didn't come down with rabies. So something had gotten him, and it was in the wintertime. Probably, I don't know if it was, a raccoon, or if maybe his mother had gotten it, but he had rabies. So it was very surprising. Usually when the red foxes get it, though, they're not real aggressive. They tend to get like the dumb rabies and be very passive. They're not the type to run around biting everybody. That's usually the gray foxes or raccoons get more aggressive. So bad things do happen to foxes, and this is where I come in. The babies do get orphaned often because of mom's hunting behavior. Mom might get hit by a car. So what we generally do, if we realize that it's a nursing mom, we'll put a camera on the den for a while just to make sure the father's coming to feed them, and we'll put some dry cat food out for them too. These little guys, Dad wasn't coming around, and I think he'd gotten hit by a car a couple miles up the road, and then Mama got hit. And these little guys I had this summer, we humanely trapped them all and brought them over. Sometimes the moms get shot because they're going after someone's chickens, and that's really sad. If people had good fencing for their chickens, that wouldn't happen. We get foxes hit by cars. They're very resilient. Many times the fox can get rolled by a car, and with just a week or two in rehab, they're able to be released. Foxes get killed by domestic dogs. The kits are grabbed sometimes by domestic dogs, killed and shaken. We've had a lot of foxes with secondary rodenticide poisoning. Actually had quite a few foxes this summer with traps on their legs. In one area alone, we had 2 foxes, one with a trap on its front leg, the other with a trap on its rear leg, obviously coming from the same home. And that was very upsetting. We weren't able to find those foxes. and they obviously lost their legs and probably, possibly ultimately their lives. Uh, you'll never hear me say anything good about trapping, so don't wait for that. Um, I've seen a lot of foxes have accidental entrapments in fences, get hung on fences trying to scale a fence. That's really sad. I had that quite a few times actually. So these little guys here on the left, they came in at 3 days of age. A litter of 7 were supposedly orphaned. I don't necessarily believe the guy's story, but I don't have a choice but to take them. Very high maintenance. You got to feed these foxes every 3 hours around the clock, and you've got 7 of them. By the time I finished feeding all 7, and I cleaned up all the equipment and put everybody away and cleaned them up, I had maybe 45 minutes to sleep before I had to start again. And that goes until they're about till their eyes open, 10 to 12 days. So it's a very stressful time. This little guy was all by himself, and they get so lonely. And so I had him. You can see I gave him litter mates, little guy, and until I could get him in with some others, till I got other foxes in. And this is some of the foxes when in rehab, and I have these little fox boxes. They go in, and they go in there, and they love to just pile on top of each other and cram in there, and they're pretty beautiful. And I couldn't do it without the help of a beautiful female fox who was unreleasable. And this guy in the black and white, that's a male fox, and that's an orphan, a lonely. And this was the most beautiful, attentive male fox. They are just fantastic with the babies. And here's some of the foxes when when I'm going to release them. I have to literally humanely trap. These are humane traps, about cat size, and I have to trap them in the pen because they're so wild. They want nothing to do with me, and that's great. They don't like me, and so I have to trap them. And what I do is I put some maybe like Bravecto, topical Bravecto, which is a flea and tick product for dogs that will protect them from sarcoptic mange as well. So I will get them in the trap, and then I can stick the syringe right onto their little, the base of their tail and their back on the spine, and put their Bravecto on so they're protected from mange for at least 3 months. And then they're taken to a release site where they're put into another pen. Look at this little guy. Look at this guy. Where they're put into another pen, and they get used to being in there, and they have food and water and comfort in there, and they're getting used to their new surroundings, and it's prime fox habitat that I choose. And then after maybe a week or so, when they seem to relax, I open up the door, and they can come and go as they please. And as long as they need food, I drop food. And when the food stops being eaten, when I don't see them coming anymore on the camera, then we're done. And usually I'll release mine the same time as the wild ones are leaving, which is basically early to mid-June. I don't want mine to be far behind the other ones. So mine, tough love. All you guys got to get out there, and I release them when the wild ones are also dispersing. This little guy got hit by a car. When they get to be this age, they start traveling, and in this den was right next to the road, and it's right in these trees and these logs. And look at the beautiful neighbor did. This works. Nobody wants to hit a baby fox. Put a little sign out. There was another sign further up the road for the other direction. Really, nobody wants to hit a baby fox. They would like to be warned. And so that has saved a lot of lives. And I just love seeing signs like this. Baby fox crossing. This little guy was another one from this year, so precious. This little guy, for some reason, his family left, and they left him behind. I don't know why, but that's a sign of trouble. And we were able to catch him, and he was fine. I don't know where the family went, but he was fine. I got him in with the others. So I deal sometimes with something that I guess I can only call meningitis. These are young foxes, and their eyes, especially this one here, is typical. Their eyes will be very opaque for some reason. And I believe that that's because there's fluid building up on the brain from an infection. And so they're getting swelling on the brain, and that's causing pressure on the back of the eyes. And therefore, the eyes are not really as light and as there's something wrong. You just see how dark they are. And years ago, we didn't know what it was, and we would have to euthanize these kids because when it was left to progress, they would start seizuring and they would die. But now, guess what? We can treat them with antibiotics and just a mild, like an aspirin, just something to keep the swelling down. This little guy had meningitis, but someone saw him get attacked by another fox. This is a tooth mark in his head. And my question was, okay, the other fox attacked him. Why? What's wrong with him? Well, because he wasn't acting right, because he had meningitis. So we treated the wound and treated the meningitis, and there he is, able to be released. These little guys have hydrocephalus, and you can see the fluid pocket there. What's happening is the cerebrospinal fluid is supposed to be reabsorbed into the body, but for some reason, it's not leaving the cranium like it should. You know, like in a human baby, they would put a shunt, but they don't have shunts for baby foxes. And these little guys, unfortunately, if you can see, it's a very painful condition because of all the pushing. It's pushing the eyes out, it's pushing on the brain. And gosh, they're cute like this, but it's very painful and they will not recover. So they have to be euthanized. Sometimes this is a normal fox skull. This is a skull with meningitis. You can see the abnormality there. The best thing to do is to humanely euthanize. This fox was blind. She was born, took her to an eye specialist, born without pupils, no pupils. She went to the Gray Maine Wildlife Center, and nobody knew she was stone blind but myself and the curator. She would actually chase butterflies in her very large enclosure. She was very, very tactile, and you would never know she was blind. She lived a long time at that wildlife center. This is a fox hit by a car. This fox was picked up by a young person who wanted to keep it as a pet. It was injured, kept it like in a carrier for weeks, and we were finally able to get away from him. And that poor fox had existed like this with that bad break in the leg, and it had to be euthanized. It was unfixable. It was very sad. Sarcoptic mange. Here we have on the right a before and after picture. Obviously, the before is, on the top there. Sarcoptic mange is a mite. It burrows under the skin and causes them to itch and scratch and irritates the skin to the point where it's just crusty. They lose their fur. Their eyes get squinted closed. We treated this one years ago. I used to treat them with ivermectin, and they'd have to get it at least every 5 days for at least 30 days because the life cycle of the mite is like 21 days. So you have to keep treating them. Ivermectin stays in the body for 4 days. So you got to keep a constant thing. So every 5 days and like an egg or a meatball, and that fox was cured. And here's another fox I got in last year. Here, this one was cowering in a dog kennel, and I just grabbed it out of there. And if you look at the base of the tail here, you'll see these sores happen on either side of the base of the tail. Those are pressure points. This poor little guy, I gave him antibiotics because I caught him. Gave him antibiotics and a dose of Bravecto, which stays in the body for 3 months. This is the same fox after only 5 days. Look at the improvement. Look how the eyes opened up. And you can do that. This is Bravecto, a Bravecto chew, and I have got it scored with a razor blade, and I will, make different doses. I can divide this tablet into numerous doses for a fox. 1 dose of Bravecto in a meatball or in a pill pocket is all a fox needs to get. That's it. If you can't get it from your vet, like for your dog or something, the vet won't give it to you for a fox. If you can't, there's some out of the country companies that will sell Bravecto where it's not regulated. And one such company is called bestvetcare.com. And you can buy your Bravecto there and treat your fox. So an 88 to 123 pound chew, Bravecto chew, I can treat 12 foxes with that, 12 adult foxes. Oh, I met a beautiful friend because of a fox with mange. And Jack Russell was walking with his dog and he saw a fox in the woods and it had mange. And he got in touch with me and he treated that fox. I'm pretty sure we used the ivermectin because it was quite a while ago. That fox is 12 years old now. And Jack actually wrote a book about it, and it's a beautiful book. It's available on Amazon, and I encourage you to get it and read it. It's beautiful. And I was lucky enough to be able to write a little piece on the back there. That's me writing my recommendation for the book. So there you go. Highly recommend that. This fox was hit by a car. This is day one, sleeping like a princess, very peacefully. I got that one nearby here, basically unconscious. Look at this, day two, coming around. Day three, sitting up. Day four, eating. Not day five, but not long after, released back to the wild, right where that fox came from. So here's an X-ray. Look where this is circled. See all that? See that break right there? All those little bones? Guess what that's from? That's a trap. I followed this trail. We got fox prints, and look, it's dragging something. It's dragging a trap on its foot. Actually, it's going this way. So it's dragging a trap on the right front foot. And I tracked that fox, and I caught that fox. And there's the trap. That was a coyote trap. And by the way, that fox's mate was in the area screaming all night. And I believe the next photo is going to be a little graphic. If you don't want to look at it, it's going to be what that paw looked like with the trap removed and the fur shaved. So turn away if you can't handle that. On the left is when the trap was removed, the blood started rushing to the area, these toes. And then this is shaved for surgery because these toes are literally just broken right off. But guess what? Beautiful veterinarian. She amputated those toes. Why not? Why destroy the whole fox? We really thought he would do well enough, and his mate was frantic. So we released him right back home. And there's him. And there he goes, back to his mate. Another graphic photo. This is a snare. If you've never seen a snare, at least New York State, they're illegal, but boy, the trappers are trying to get those back. They use those for foxes and coyotes, but we've been getting cats with them. Cats will put their whole body, and what happens is this wire tightens, and it's on a little lever. So the more the animal moves, the tighter that wire gets. This fox here had that snare on its neck, and they brought it here, and we cut the snare off, but look at that wound. Now that wound would heal, but the unfortunate part about this was that it had gone so deep that it had damaged the fox's nerves, and it was a very important nerve, and we couldn't release that fox. It was not releasable because of the incredible damage that snare did. Bad things. Another graphic photo. Gunshots. Now look at this. Look at the size of that wound. You would never believe this fox had been shot. You would never believe that gunshot did not go through any vital organs, didn't break anything. And wonderful vets at the SPCA, the Erie County SPCA, did the surgery, closed that wound. Look at that. Never believed that fox would have lived. And that fox was released. And if you're going to fox hunt, this is the only way to do it. The only good way to hunt foxes. Here's another interesting story. This is a before picture of a vixen with kits. She had a litter. She would come to this lady's house for pancakes. She's eating pancakes on a plate. She came back the one day, and this is what she looked like. What the heck happened? We didn't know. I think I know now. I think she went under a car and a hot muffler burned her. So went and we trapped her. And there she is. Came all the way from Rochester, the lady, as soon as she got in the trap, drove her in the middle of the night to me to Rochester. And this is the good care from our local SPCA doing the medical care. This is the wound all cleaned up. You're not going to believe this. The wound getting smaller. They use laser therapy, among other things. Laser therapy, a red laser. Look at, even the fur grew back, but the ear is deformed. The ear was burned. The veterinarian did plastic surgery on that ear to give her a little something. And look at that. She can go back. And by the way, during that time, we kept her babies fed. We were able to give them dry cat food and water and make sure that they were okay while she was in the hospital. And there she is at release. And here she is back for food. Oh, all right. Well, now we're going to talk about foxes and cats, and this is the last series of photos. Warning, graphic photos. Foxes and cats. Do foxes eat cats? You ready? Oh, no. Oh, he's going for the head. Oh, look. Do foxes eat cats? More often, they become very great friends. And here's a number of different fox and cat situations. It's usually the foxes that win. And foxes and cats are very territorial with each other. And cats, like I said, cats, I love cats, but they really have an attitude. But very often you will see foxes eating with the cats side by side, more so than killing them. And here's some more foxes and cats. This is a gray fox, upper left-hand corner, sipping milk with the kitty. And that's presentation. That's the end. If you like what I do, and if you want to help me out, and you would like to make a donation, I do have a PayPal. It's the same as my email. And I invite you, we really don't have time for Q&A. But if you have any questions, foxladye@yahoo.com. Send me an email. Find me on Facebook. Send me a private message, and I'll answer any questions that you have. If you would like to donate via Venmo, I do have a Venmo account. And so that's it. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I hope you enjoyed it.